Hi, I'm Taylor Doherty. I'm sitting here with Ben Cohen, and this is a podcast to go up on the Final Four topics page. Ben, did you watch the Baylor game, and what did you think of it?
I did watch the game.
Good to know.
Like everyone else on campus, I think. I thought it was a great win for Duke, probably also like everyone else on campus. I think getting to the Final Four in general, obviously it's something that no one on this campus has seen. No undergraduate has seen. The president of the university hasn't even seen it while he's been in the Allen building at Duke. So I think it was really exciting. Obviously the game itself was great, but just the end result for a lot of people here, I think that was sort of what people are still talking about.
Yeah, it was a great performance. Something we definitely, I think, should talk about is Nolan Smith and how well he played. He had a career-high 29 points in that game. And I think in a lot of ways, him scoring 29 points gives Duke another dimension. Just like how Zubak pulling together a few good games late in the season gives him confidence to really play well in March Madness. I think that Nolan scoring 29 points makes him realize that the way he plays has a huge impact on this team. And the fact that Kyle Singler can only scored 5 points and that they still win that game and are in the Final Four, I think is big.
I think you're exactly right. I wrote a column back in January basically arguing that if Duke were to make a run in March, which it hadn't done in a couple of years, Nolan Smith was going to have to be the catalyst behind that run because he's the type of player who keys NCAA tournament runs. When you look around the NCAA tournament year after year, usually teams have one or two really good guards who can take over a game, who are dynamic, who are explosive, and who can create their own shot. And Nolan Smith can certainly do all of that, and he certainly did all of that on Sunday. 29 points on 9 of 17 shooting, a career-high 29 points, I believe. Made some of the bigger shots of the game, a couple big threes to sort of seal the game. And, like you said, this is a team that advanced to the Final Four with Kyle Singler going 0 for 10 from the field. Most of that has to do with Nolan Smith, I think.
Right, and Nolan was so dominant on the offensive end. Watching the game, it was hard to even remember that Singler was over 10. You sort of didn't notice it. And obviously he had his hands full on the defensive end with Dunn. But Nolan was just making everything on the offensive end. It was easy to miss.
Yeah, and John Shire too. Shire had 20 and hit some big threes of his own after struggling with his shooting. But Nolan Smith was a star. I believe he was the most outstanding player of the region, and he really developed into, or not developed, but broke out as an absolute star on Sunday. And I think that it's pretty easy to argue that if Duke is going to win 2 more games this season, Smith's going to have to play a pretty big role in that.
Smith does, and I think in a lot of ways, it's not just that his play exactly that makes him important to the team. I think that Smith gives this team a certain personality, a personality that the team hasn't had in the last few years. You just get the sense by seeing them play, but they also do constantly talk about the fact that they really like each other and that their chemistry this year. Lance Thomas, Shire, and Nolan Smith all said after the game in the locker room in the Elite Eight that this team is the best chemistry of any team they've ever played on.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say that now, but one thing that I do think is true, just from an observer's standpoint, is that this team is looser than any Duke team I've seen in a long time. A lot of those Duke teams were tight. They were sort of bogged down in expectations. They were relieved to win. I didn't get that sense after Sunday, and I really haven't gotten that sense from this team all year. As cliched as it is, I do think that this team is having fun out there on the court, and I think a lot of that has to do with Nolan's personality. If you remember back to Midnight Madness, Nolan Smith came out with his hands over his head, wearing sunglasses, coming out to Jay-Z's public service announcement, which starts, "Allow me to reintroduce myself." And I think that's exactly what Smith has done this year. And I think that, his persona and Duke's letting him have that persona instead of just being the same old Duke player, the same branded, player that conforms to the image of the team. I think them allowing him to be himself has really had some great consequences for the entire team.
And I think at the same time, though, the fact that Duke is in the Final Four now, I think takes a ton of pressure off whatever they do from here. Throughout the year, it wasn't exactly a question that they like to speak to when asked about these perceptions that, one, that Duke is unathletic, or two, that they haven't made it far in the tournament. And, even if Nolan is giving this team a certain personality, those are the sort of questions that a team gets tired of, that you haven't made it to the Final Four since 2004. And it's obviously something that was on their minds. I mean, Coach Krzyzewski talked about that after the game. But now they're in the Final Four. And so no matter what happens now, people are going to remember that about this team. And I think that helps them. I think it takes some of the pressure off, that no matter what happens here is sort of icing on the cake.
You're right. This team has put together a great season so far. 2 wins over North Carolina, including a win over North Carolina at home, an ACC regular season championship, an ACC tournament championship, and now a Final Four. Obviously, hanging a 4th banner in Cameron Indoor Stadium would be the icing on the cake. But no matter what happens this weekend, I think that no one's really going to have a problem with this season. I mean, this isn't losing in the first or second round or Sweet 16. This isn't losing, 6 of the last 11 games or falling apart at the end of the ACC. This team has had a really special year. Maybe Duke's best season since that national championship in 2001, and we'll see if it gets a little bit better this weekend.
Thanks for listening to our preview, and we hope that you enjoy watching the Final Four.
Take care.